Right now, I want to bring in a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Rand Paul. Mr. Senator, you were against the strike on Iran. Now the ceasefire appears to be holding. Do you still think Trump was wrong to get involved militarily?
You know, I hope that the strikes were successful. I hope that the response from Iran will be to discontinue its nuclear program. But I think it's still unknown. We don't know yet how much was destroyed and whether it was destroyed. There are some reports that 400 kilograms of highly enriched uranium was removed before the strikes. There are also now reports or leaks from the Defense Intelligence Agency saying that it wasn't destruction of the sites, but rather may put them back a few months. So this has always been my position, that it's unknown how Iran will react. They may be chastened by the attacks and they may say, oh, we're sorry, we're giving up and we'll do whatever you tell us. Or they may be hardened, they may be steeled in resolve, and they may decide to sprint towards the bomb. I don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. My concern with the bombing is that it will push them in the direction of actually completing the weapon.
I think there's going to be a closed-door meeting, intelligence meeting, for senators and congressmen alike. I presume that at that meeting you will be asking, do the Iranians have any nuclear material left? And what do you know about it? That's what you really want to know.
Absolutely. And I really think part of that discussion needs to be public, because I don't think it's classified what they have remaining, or it shouldn't be classified, because the public needs to discuss, particularly if they make a sprint towards the weapon. We need to judge whether the military attack was a good idea or a bad idea.
The president dismisses this leak completely, and he's really pounding on CNN for leaking it. And he's saying, look, we got it all. It's totally destroyed it. That's what he's saying. And he's got a team working on that right now. You don't accept the president on this?
I don't know what to accept. I have heard the leaks. I've also heard the press secretary say that top secret things shouldn't be released, implying that there was actually a report saying this. But the analysts are guests as well. So they're intelligent people, but they're making guesses on satellite photos, I would think, primarily. Maybe they also have informants, I don't know. But really, probably no one's been down there yet. They bombed the hell out of the place. So I would think you have to dig out to even find out what's left. I don't even think the Iranians probably will know what's left for a couple of weeks. But I do think that there are two possibilities now. Iran is chastened and gives up, or they're going to hasten their development of a bomb. I worry about the latter because I don't want them to have nuclear weapons.
Do you think that now the president's at the NATO meeting in Europe? He's gotten a very warm reception. Can you call this a win for the president?
Well, you know, the Bushes are happy, Mike Pence is happy, Bill Kristol is happy. All of his critics that think he's not bellicose enough are just loving it and clapping, and they're very excited. Many of them, I think, secretly hope that we will send troops into the Middle East and be more mired in another prolonged war. I do think, though, that the president's instincts are counter to people like Bill Kristol and Levine. So I think that the president actually will try to keep us out of war, and I'm glad that he's pushed towards a ceasefire. And I think the president has some good instincts. I don't agree with the bombing, and I do think you have to ask the Congress for permission. That's what the Constitution demands. But at the same time, I wish him well, and I think the president's instincts on foreign policy are often good.
But it's worth pointing out that he has twisted the arms of the Europeans to the point where they're quite prepared and have committed to almost doubling their defense spending.
I think that's good. I think it was both his influence as well as the influence of Putin attacking Ukraine that has gotten Europe more involved with defending their countries. And frankly, they do. Ukraine's, on the edge of Europe or part of Europe, and they need to be the primary defenders and ones opposing Putin. And so I think Europe has been motivated, and I think that's a good thing.
Last one, Senator, let's talk about the big, beautiful bill. You're one of the few Republican holdouts. What would it take to make you get on board with that bill?
Very simply, all they have to do is separate out the debt ceiling into a different vote. I'm not for raising the debt ceiling $5 trillion. I think that's a mistake to have such a large expansion of the credit line to a Congress that has shown disregard for fiscal responsibility, nearly a $37 trillion debt, $1 trillion interest, $2 trillion annual debt. Congress is not trustworthy, and they shouldn't get a long credit line. They should get a very short credit line and a very short leash. If they take that off the bill, I can support the bill.
You couldn't meet the deadline, though, July the 4th, if you tried to split it up now. Could
Sure.
you?
If there were 4 people like myself who didn't want to raise the debt ceiling $5 trillion, we would just simply tell them that and they would take it off like that. The bill has not been voted on. When it was presented to us, they could easily take the debt ceiling off and just present it. Either way, the House has to vote again. The hope is that we vote one time and then the House votes for what we approve. That's not even a certainty, to tell you the truth. But it's very easy to strip the debt ceiling off. The only reason they don't do it is there's 1 of me, not 4 of me.
Got it. Senator Rand Paul, thanks very much for being with us this morning. Always appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.